Well, we were pretty excited here to start assembling this tonight. I was hoping to have it back up on wheels. And that's when things went sour. We got our first major problem. Set my transmission member in there, and it was a little tight, and I didn't know why. And when I looked at the holes, they weren't lined up either. Well, it turns out, if you look at how my motor mounts are made, with the weight of the motor, it had the frame rails bowed out, and I couldn't really tell. Well, now that I have it welded together with that new cross member in there, they're not moving. So my holes don't line up. It's not a total deal killer, it really sucks, but I'm gonna have to take each of these holes and I'm gonna have to move them in just a little bit, about 1/4 of an inch on each side, and even then it's still gonna be a little tight. It really had this frame bowed. But I think if I move the holes about 1/4 inch on each side, and then maybe it'll take a little bit of a jack just to pry the frame a little bit and it'll go together. But it's a really disappointing fact when you're ready just to bolt it together, and now I got to deal with this. So, alright, well, I'll get my die grinder out here and we'll slot those holes a little bit and go from there. Okay, well, I had to use the die grinder to slot the holes about 1/4 inch on each side, but now it bolts right in there and got everything lock washered and tightened down. So we'll go ahead and wheel this motor over here and drop her in. Hopefully it's as easy as that and we don't have any other hiccups. Okay, well, we're ready for our motor mounts here. If anyone knows how much these motors vibrate, it's a good thing to Loctite. So we're just going to put a Loctite a little bit on the motor plates here. And I like the blue. So we'll go ahead and do that. Kind of a lot on it here. Spread it out a little bit. Okay. I've went ahead and tapped all the holes in my block so they're nice and clean. Shouldn't be any issues there. Go ahead and thread these on and get the other side. The other side's a little tougher with the turbo. It tucks right down close to the motor mount, but there's clearance. And most of the time the turbo is off by the time the motor mounts are on, so not too worried. Will say that transmission member kind of freaked me out. I thought that I was going to be in for a long night and going to be stuck on it for the night, but a little bit of die grinder work and it got around it. Thinking I should have got a bigger bottle of Loctite. Okay, our motor mounts are now intact and we got them torqued down. All new bolts and everything Loctited in. All POR 15. So we're ready to go ahead and see. Hopefully our jack raises this thing up. If not, that's going to be another kink in the night. It'll actually hold pressure, so I can always put the jack underneath the oil pan and get it up in the air and then slowly slide it over. But just another thing to go wrong. Let's see how it does. Well, I should have known when I had troubles at first there that it was going to lead to more problems, and it certainly did. This motor didn't drop in nearly as nice as it should have, and once I got it in, I figured out why. Again, it was that cross member that I welded in with the motor out. It flexed back, and the motor holes are too narrow now. The motor's setting too high, and it's also setting off-centered because the one side's slotted and the one side's not. You can see it's setting towards the passenger side. They're about 1/2 inch. So instead of taking the whole motor back out and re-drilling the plates on the frame, I got a solution that I'm going to come in here on I can just raise the motor up a little bit, pop off my motor mounts, and I can slot these holes on the engine side, and that'll allow the motor to set down in there and hopefully come more towards the driver's side where it needs to be. Pretty frustrating overall. Thought it was going to be a bolt together item, and that whole flexing of the frame while the motor was in there, and that's how I made all my components. All except this cross member, which I welded in when the frame was upside down and bare. So it's really causing a lot of problems now. But I guess we'll have to deal with it, and it's one of the things that goes with conversion. I was really tired of working on this thing for the last few weeks, and really hoping that I could get it up on wheels and kind of push it to the side for a week, but you know how it goes. Alright, well, we'll get back to work here, and maybe in a couple days we'll have something that looks like a frame and a rolling chassis. Alright guys, well, we got the motor setting in there, but I'm not happy with where it's at. The last 2 days have been nothing but pure frustration. The whole bowing of the frame while I made all my mounts, and then once the cross member was in there, has really screwed this whole process. And just like I say, it's been really frustrating. There's been several glasses of whiskey on the rocks that have been thrown down here, just sitting here looking at this and thinking how am I going to correct it. I think I finally got a little bit of a plan figured out. I got it sitting in there now, but like I say again, I'm not happy with where it's at, and let me tell you why. Right now the transmission is tilted down, mostly because the motor is setting high, so that causes these bolts to want to go in at an angle. The transmission mount doesn't want to set square, and like I say, it was a pain to put in right here, so if you ever had to work on this thing, it would just be a nightmare. So while I got the chance to do it now, and as much as I want to get this thing together ASAP, it's not the right thing to do. Up front, you can see my motor setting about, it's about 1 inch of clearance in here right now. I want it about 1/2 inch. And it's also setting over towards the passenger side just a little bit. So I think I got a plan of action to go ahead and modify the motor mounts that bolt to the block. And I got these lines kind of drawn on here. I'm going to slot these holes, and I might even fill them back in on the back side. We'll see, or at least 1 or 2 of them. That'll allow me the motor to drop down and also swing back, because my motor mounts right now here, you can see they're on a bind, and obviously that's not what we want. So if we move the motor back and down, that'll drop it, give us a clearance for the hood, get our pulley back where we want it, and get the transmission set and level. And then if we have to modify this block just a little bit, we can do that. I've already tried grinding some of the holes out and it just isn't working. The only true solution is to get the motor where we want it. And also we got more clearance underneath our main cross member here than we need to, so of course the motor has to come down. But good thing is now we should have our firewall clearance. If you look at where my motor's setting here, compared to the old cross member, before it was back about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. Now we're almost up flush. Like I said, we still got plenty of clearance. It's just a matter of getting the height right. So, well, we're going to take another night here and go ahead and get all this stuff fixed up. I was really hoping to have this thing back on the wheel. I also found another issue. I was looking at those bushings before. I was talking about the heavy-duty shackle mounts in the front. I got to looking at these bushings that I thought were 1/2 inch. They were really 9/16, which is the main bushing diameter for the front, which is good, except for every kit I bought still came with a 7/16 rear diameter. So I think what I'm going to do is buy 2 more of these kits and actually run 9/16 everywhere. So these are only 16 bucks a kit, so it's only another $32. I've got all brand new bolts for all the suspension, so spent a little more money here than I thought, but at this point the project is snowballing on the cost here, so why cut back now? I'm hoping to have this thing look like a brand new truck here when it's done. Even if it's not perfect in body, though, I mean, I want it to be rust free, I want it to be clean, and I want everything to function properly. So go ahead and get this fixed and give some updates. Like I say, I kind of need a break from this right now. I'm really frustrated and just can't believe all that work I did up front to avoid this, and here it is happening. But stay tuned and we'll show you the solutions to this.